Good morning, everybody. So today we start our adventure with the Rig Veda, basic division of the whole literature available in India on Shruti and Smriti. I will be writing in a Latin script and transliterations for some people who do not know Devanagari. Shruti is a revelation. It is that which was revealed to the inner audience of the rishi, of the person who, as Sri Aurobindo says, prepared himself to receive this impersonal knowledge, who did sadhana, who made himself fit for this revelation. It was revealed in terms of the word. The word came down, was seen in the highest heaven. There are thousands of sounds, aksharas, in the highest heaven, parame vyoman. And that is the explanation of the Veda. They were revealed. Rishis even saw them as nearly written and transmitted or fixed in the outer consciousness. That was Shruti. And Smriti is all the rest, which is explaining it, all the Shastras, all the Vedangas, all the Sutra literatures, Mahabharata, Ramayana, all Kavyas, whatever we have, Sutra literature especially, yes? Scientific literature, Darshanas, Yoga Sutras, Sankhya, Vaisheshika Nyaya, all of that literature is Smriti. It is created by the thought, by the thinking process, and it is fixed by the memory. It is transmitted by memory. It is memorized. Now, what belongs to Shruti? Now we will look into it. Shruti literature is very rich. If I would bring all these books here, you would not believe how much it is. And all of that was transmitted orally, by oral tradition. Vedas were prohibited to be written. Writing was prohibited in the Brahmanas. So those who had to learn Vedas had to learn them by heart only, from the teacher to the student directly. So it was full responsibility of a teacher to transmit that knowledge to the person whom he finds fit. So there is this personal aspect, or rather psychological aspect, of choosing the right person. And there is a very interesting story in the Chandogya Upanishad, and most probably some of you know about Satyakama Jabala, where the teacher is to decide what to do. And Satyakama Jabala was a boy, 7 years old, and he told his mother, "Mother, please, I am now ready to receive Vedic knowledge. Can you introduce me to the teacher? I am ready to go to the teacher and learn Vedas. Can you tell me my gotra, my lineage, who is my father?" And mother says, "You see, I was a servant and I served in many houses, and truly speaking, when I got you, I don't know who is your father." Okay. "Your name is Satyakama, my name is Jabala," she says. "So you will be Satyakama Jabala. This is your gotra. No father." So Satyakama Jabala goes to the teacher, and all the students are sitting there, and he says, "Teacher, please teach me the Veda. I approach you with a fuel." Usually they took some, wood sticks to light the fire, to kindle the fire. It was a symbolic kindling of the fire of the beginning of the teaching. And the teacher asks him, "What is your gotra? "Who is your father?" And he said, "I asked the same question my mother. And she told me that she served in many houses. And that time when she got me, she didn't know who my father was. So her name is Jabala, my name is Satyakama, so I am Satyakama Jabala." Students immediately made fun of him. "How come? Look who is coming." Because it was not permitted of the lower, so to say, varnas and castes to approach this knowledge. It had to be only in Brahmin lineage. And teacher says, "Approach me, I will teach you Vedas because you didn't deviate from the truth. You are true Brahmin. And your mother also is true Brahmin because she also didn't deviate from the truth." This was the choice of the teacher. And it is in the Shruti. So it wasn't fixed by only, social lineage as it is now, but it was also recognized psychologically. So that's an interesting story, very touching, very moving, especially for Indians who know what it means in that particular way. So Shruti literature has Samhita texts. I will write. Samhita is a collection of hymns. There are many different samhitas. Yes, there is a Rigveda Samhita, Samaveda Samhita, Yajurveda Samhita, with many shakhas, and Atharva Veda Samhita. But originally, this Samhita text was considered to be of three types: Rigveda, Yajurveda, and Samaveda. And that knowledge was called Trividya. Trividya means of three kind, knowledge of three kind. I will come to it later, because I will give first the whole overview, and then I will come to Samhita in particular. Second level was Brahmanas. Brahmana literature. The whiteboard is moving and difficult to write. Brahmana is the commentary on Samhita, which was much later from the Samhita period, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 years after, which was commenting on the text in the ritualistic and mythological sense, explaining myths and explaining them in the ritualistic sense. It shows already that the whole content of the Vedas, of the Samhita text, was lost, that the commentary was needed, that the commentary with application to life was needed, fixing that in the ritualistic terms. Because Samhita texts are purely invocations to the gods, actions of the word, of the poetry. It's not yet ritualistic. It's more psychological or poetic, or philosophical, psychological, poetic, and cosmological together, if you like. So there is an extensive literature of Brahmanas, and I will mention only a few later. The third one is Aranyakas. The texts which had to be studied in the forest. Aranyaka, you can recognize it, is from the forest. And the fourth one is Upanishad. And you will have the whole presentation of Upanishad, so I will not speak much about it, only I will say that this is a conclusive part of the whole Shruti literature, which was to be studied after the Aranyakas, and so to say is mainly of highly philosophical and psychological nature, explaining the meaning of the Veda. But there is a gradation in time from the Samhita to Upanishad. Upanishads are the farthest in time from the Samhita texts. What is interesting in this view is that these four also correspond to the four ashramas of Brahmin's life. Brahmin lived through the periods of time. First period was when he was initiated to study the Vedas, as Satyakama Jabala approached his teacher when he was 7 or 6 even, they do, to receive the knowledge of the Veda. How it was given? It was just memorized. The whole Samhita text was memorized. For example, this is Rig Veda Samhita, this book with this kind of script, just to show you how thin it is. Some kind of 700 or 800 pages, more than 900 pages, was totally, accurately, precisely memorized. So the Brahmin from 6 to 25 or even to 30, age of 30, was doing only one thing, memorizing the text properly. And by the way, it went to that precision that when the scholars from the West in 19th century started to collect data from India, for example, they went to the north, to the south, to the east, west, central India, and collected all that, how Brahmins were reciting the Vedas. When they put these texts together, there was no difference between them. And that was the greatest shock for all Western understanding, because they thought that the written word was more precise. And it seems that written word makes many more mistakes, because rewriting it means being less conscious of the text than memorizing it and transmitting it through memory. So you can imagine that the Brahmin who lives in the north, who never traveled and comparing how he learned it from the south, never. Because there is no time for this. To memorize it, you have to get it from the teacher directly, and to pass it to the student directly, there is no time of comparing and correcting anything. Nobody does these corrections and comparisons. The text is identical. So that's how it was decided that the text was authentic. Otherwise, there is no way to really clarify that point. So what is interesting that these periods correspond to 4 ashramas. First ashram is exactly, ashrama is... What's
that term, the 4 ashrams?
Yes, ashrama. Ashrama is, how do you call it? Stage of life. Yes, so the first ashrama is what we know as grihastha, staying in the house. Brahmacari, what I just mentioned. Brahmacari is the one who studies the Vedas. He learns the Vedas till he is 30, and then he has to marry. He has to forget all that, to leave aside all this memorization, because he learned it perfectly by heart. He has to marry, and then this Brahmana literature is very important, because he has to apply that, all he learned by heart, to the ritualistic life. So he has to have his life on the side, so to say, central life, and on the side do these rituals. And I will come to Agnihotra and will explain how Agnihotra works. It's a very interesting exercise. Daily oblation into the fire with mantras. So the whole Grihastha period or ashrama belongs to Brahmana, and then once he gets his first grandson, you can imagine that he got his children, his son got married, he went through all Brahmacharya period, and gets his son, so he gets his first grandson, he has to move out to the forest, and it is called Vanaprastha, and there he studies Aranyakas. There he, for the first time, he looks into these texts with the philosophical mind, thinking about them, what they really mean. Can you imagine after 25 years being married, having life and all that, remembering texts from his childhood, now he comes to these texts with a critical mind, trying to think what they really mean. Now, doing that for 25 years, again, in the forest, if he is still alive, he has to move into the last stage. Last ashrama, it is sannyasa. He becomes sannyasi. He is seeking only that, only the Brahman. He wants to dissolve himself into the Brahman. And that is the period where the Upanishads are helpful. You see that the whole life of Brahmin was seen as the educational project. From the beginning, it was designed to be, teach him something which he could not do by himself. So he becomes a carrier of all this knowledge. He knows perfectly by heart all the texts. Now he has to reflect upon them and to get out of it the knowledge. That's why Svadhyaya, and I will come to it later, was so important. That was the only way to learn about reality. It is to recite the text, learned perfectly by heart with the one part, with the tongue, so to say, and with the other part, with a calm and detached mind, to observe the text. And the new meanings were always rising up. So in that sense, the person who recites becomes himself a sacrificial altar. The sacrifice is taking place within himself. So, and all the gods, as Sayana explains in his commentaries on Taittiriya, Aranyaka second part, all the gods are born within him who knows the Vedas. They are born because he is reciting and he is observing with the mind. And I will come to this ritualistic picture in a minute.